And please stand. Please remain standing for a moment of silence for the victims of the terrible hurricanes that we've been having. Thank you very much. The principal item on the agenda this evening is the busing concern that everybody's had, and the superintendent will address that.
Okay, so good evening, everybody. I'm thrilled actually to have you here tonight because we really are looking forward to this opportunity to share with our families and staff members who are here basically a timeline of the events that have occurred with our transition to a new bus company, and certainly to be able to share with you what actions we've taken as a school department, and then certainly what actions Durham has taken once we got to the point where we were desperate for some intervention from them. So I'm going to take you through many of the details. I certainly won't be able to get into every minute detail. Basically every single email to and from Durham, from principals and parents and our central office team has been captured, printed, so that yellow folder up there, which is about this thick, represents all of the correspondence that has taken place. So I have tried my best to summarize it for you. I'm going to go through the presentation. I think that much of what I share with you will probably answer the questions, some of the questions that you have, but we recognize that you're going to have additional questions, and we're prepared to answer them for you. We do have officials from Durham who are here. I'm going to present the first part of the information this evening, and then I will invite Durham officials up and introduce them so that they can present the second part of the presentation. So I will try to get through this as painlessly as possible, but again, I am really thrilled to have you here. I also want to recognize that we do have some Durham employees here tonight who are concerned and want to make sure that they provide the very best services to your children as well. And they want to hear what's said tonight and hear your concerns as well, so I appreciate that. And I really am confident that moving forward, we're going to be able to come to a resolution and ensure the safety for all of our students. So I'm going to back up just a little bit. As most of you know, I started here as your new superintendent at the beginning of June. Prior to that, the North Providence School Department awarded the bid to Durham School Services, and there are several reasons why the switch was made from Northeast to Durham, and many of those have been explained to me. Again, I wasn't here at the time. I can say that coming from another district that also had contracted with Durham, when I heard that Durham was going to be the new bus company, I really didn't skip a beat, because in my prior experiences with Durham, everything had been smooth, and I hadn't experienced any trials or tribulations. So I really didn't skip a beat, and I can't say that my awareness was really heightened, and I wasn't all that concerned. Moving forward, June 2017, it's typical that that's about when we start all of our good planning. A lot of people think that summer's really easy for those of us in education, but that's when all the planning for the upcoming year takes place. So that was, June 14th was my first meeting with the central office team and Durham officials in preparation for both our extended school year programs, which started July 5th, and then also in preparation for the 17-18 school year. So the types of things that we talked about at that meeting, we talked about the start times. We discussed the fact that one of our schools, McGuire, which is a swing school, would have a different start time, a later start time. So we shared all of those. We shared the times that students could be dropped off, as well as the actual start time when instruction needs to begin. We talked about the different needs of the swing schools, the fact that students who attend McGuire and Stephen Olney, all students would now be eligible for busing, so that increased the number of stops and routes and whatnot. So that was something that we knew Durham would need to address, even though all of that had already been addressed prior to my arrival, but it was something that I reiterated in that meeting. We provided timelines for the district to be provided with the routes, with bus numbers, bus stops, bus routes. We talked about, and I really have to compliment Lori Falone. I don't know if Lori's here, but is she here? She's in the back somewhere. But Lori's our transportation coordinator, and I really relied on her knowledge and her experience with knowing every single street, every single stop, having worked with the police department over several years, knowing which stops were approved. She really had all of that expertise. And when different concerns came up, for someone who's coming from the outside, it might not have struck me as a concern, but Lori picked up on it, and she was on top of everything, and there were literally daily emails back and forth to Durham, so I really have to compliment her for that. She stayed right on top of things. We also talked about district procedures and expectations regarding students who might not be met by a parent at a bus stop, and how North Providence is a little bit different with our Kids Club program and how we transport students to the Kids Club. So we realize that North Providence has some nuances that are different from other districts, but all of that was discussed at the June 14th meeting. So moving forward into July, I mentioned a few minutes ago that our extended school year started on July 5th. July 3rd, we were informed by the Durham general manager. So the general manager is the person who is stationed right at our bus yard in North Providence. So that person is solely for North Providence. We were informed on July 3rd that some of our buses that were to be used for ESY were not yet registered. And yet we were starting ESY on July 5th. So that was our first little entrance into some crisis mode over the 4th of July. And that 2 buses that were needed for ESY were in other bus yards. They needed to be picked up. So it right away really sent us into heightened awareness, and so that created even more communication between us and Durham, pretty much constant phone calls and emails. They solved that by using larger buses until the other buses were able to be brought in from other bus yards, so there wasn't a delay in starting ESY. That's not to say that we didn't have some hiccups with ESY. We did. We had late buses. We had students who were not picked up at appropriate stops. So we still had our challenges. Our early childhood coordinator was right on top of things with regard to communicating which students needed special bus seats, so car seats, but in the bus, which ones needed perhaps a harness or a seat belt. So that had already started to be communicated in June, but we still had some challenges even when ESY started with regard to not having the items that we needed. Let's see, we had some other challenges with buses not being numbered properly. This was just during our ESY on July 5th. And then we had challenges where when we were seeking information and we were unable to contact the general manager. We were unable to get in touch with that general manager. Throughout July, we received several emails of apology for miscommunication, apologies for mishaps, for mistakes, and assurances that the routing issues were being taken care of, that all of the routes were almost finished, that we would be receiving them within a few days. So this went on for some time throughout July. So let me go back. Towards the end of July is when we would typically start to get a little bit nervous about not having the information that we need. Okay, so we still have a good almost 5-6 weeks before school starts. Not atypical to not have roots at that time, but now we start to get a little bit nervous about it, so we start to formally request, we want these roots, we want these stops now. Again, we get a lot of responses, they're more or less finished. They'll be sent to us today. The next email, when we would follow up the next morning, oops, I thought I sent it. So there was just a lot of sort of avoidance, a lot of miscommunication. We get into the very beginning of August, and now we start to really discuss what we would definitely consider to be incompetence. With regard to the technology tools that were presented as a true benefit in the bid specs and whatnot, so one of the reasons why we wanted to go with, or the district wanted to go with Durham, was for all of the technology tools that are at the fingertips of both Durham and the school department, knowing where buses are, how many kids are on the buses, having those cameras, knowing when the doors open, knowing when the doors close. So all of that technology seemed to not be working well, or we weren't able to get the answers. In terms of collaboration with colleague, we asked questions about, what about your region manager? What about another router? What about, and we were always given sort of, well, not sort of, we were given the runaround about it. So about this time, we started asking also about the letters for families. We had requested from Durham that once all the bus routes and stops and times had been determined, that letters be sent out to families. We, about August 15th, started asking daily. We need these letters sent to families, because that's about when all of you start calling us and saying, what about the bus? When is it going into the paper? The newspaper starts calling the school committee saying, why isn't the superintendent putting this in the paper? Luckily, again, I have all my emails saying, I need this now. I have a reporter calling the school committee asking why I'm not getting this information into the paper. So we were told that the dry runs had been done. We were told also that all of the stops, which have to be approved by Sergeant Scaramuzzo from the North Providence Police Department, we were told that all of the stops had been approved. So we're plugging along. We're just sort of waiting for those routes to be finished. We were told that on August 21st that the letters to the families would be going out no later than August 24th. Again, I wasn't that alarmed, because August 24th is still well in advance of starting the first day of school. As we proceed, we find out that we have a lot of challenges. The bus, let's go back to those letters for a minute. Most of you can probably attest to the fact that even though we were told repeatedly they had been sent out the 24th, they had been sent out the 27th, we found out that they were actually postmarked on the 2nd. Well, the problem with that is that we were already in school. They were dated, if you have your letter, August 17th, and by that time, the routes and times had changed multiple times. So on top of not having correct routes running, you now receive another letter that changes what you already expect, and we didn't know, we had nothing to do with those letters being sent out. The general manager sent those letters out after, quite honestly, he was already released from duty. So I'm telling you all of this not to, paint a really bleak picture, but it has been a really bleak picture. And I also want to be very transparent with what has transpired and the efforts that the school department has made to rectify this repeatedly. So moving through August, we had some parent forums. For those of you whose children attend Stephen Olney or McGuire, we asked that a representative, so our general manager from Durham, be in attendance at those parent forums. And again, Lori, throughout both of those days, had repeatedly asked for correct routes. We knew that parents were already anxious about going to swing schools. We wanted to make sure that everything was smooth. We even had 2 of our central office staff members here just dealing with busing to help parents understand what the routes were, what the stops were, and we were assured that they were all correct. So Lori, after the first parent forum on the 16th, she had some serious concerns because as she's going through the routes which she received right before the parent forum, even though she had asked several times, she found a lot of errors and concerns. And so in preparation for the next night, Lori was again requesting all throughout the day, make sure these are right. We can't do this to the parents. We were assured they're right. We again had problems, even though we tried our best to have the parent forums and to get ahead of it. So moving forward again through August, things get heightened. This is when basically all throughout the night we're requesting information, we're reaching out to other individuals, we're communicating with our principals, letting them know, listen, we have some concerns, you know, we're going to get, the principals were requesting the bus routes from us, bus lists. So we would forward those emails to Durham. The response would be, they're coming, they'll be there soon. So the principals were right on top of it too. So they were doing everything that they could in their power, including answering emails from many, many parents, hundreds of emails, parents requesting this information. So there were ongoing, outstanding questions. We're getting closer to the start of the school year. And again, we already talked about the communication with the families. It became more and more difficult to reach the general manager. We made multiple attempts to communicate. We had ongoing, we attempted to communicate through voicemail, text messages, email, so on and so forth. So we're going to fast forward to the first day of school, which I'm sure was memorable for all of you. You're here, right? So it was memorable for all of us as well. And I want to say that the safety of your children is first and foremost our top priority. It has been our top priority throughout the preparation, throughout that first day of school, and then literally every moment of every day our central office team has been focused solely on the busing situation. And that's going back to mid-August. So I realize that you have concerns, and rightly so. You have every right to be concerned. But please know that our central office conference room in the morning, in the afternoons, it looks like a war room. Every one of us is on our cell phones. We're calling Durham. We're texting principals. We're texting people. They're trying to get in touch with drivers. And it sounds chaotic, and it is chaotic. It's been very challenging. It has gotten a little better, but just know that we have been all hands on deck, and I'm talking everyone stops what they're doing, and everyone is there to ensure that we know where every child is, that we're doing our very best to work with Durham to ensure everyone's safety. The first day of school, that memorable day, so let's talk a little bit about that. I promise I'm getting close to turning this over to Durham. We realized at that point that those letters still hadn't been received by the parents. We realized that because the night before, when I still hadn't received updated bus routes, I was in my office and I downloaded what I had and then went to every school's website. I printed out the 2 copies and found so many discrepancies. I knew that the next day could be people waiting for buses longer than they should. The times weren't right. I knew that. They weren't off by that much, 5 minutes, 4 minutes, but I knew that they were not perfect. And the morning was extremely disorganized. We had a lot of late buses. We had a lot of confusion with stops and routes. At that point, I said, nope, we need to kick this way up. So we had one of the higher-up managers come from the New York border during that middle of the day, and he was there with us in the afternoon. And it was at that point that we realized there had been a complete breakdown in oversight, even though we had been assured all throughout that that person had been providing oversight. There wasn't oversight. So that first day of school, we realized that was very difficult for parents and kids, and we apologize for that. So then from that first day all the way till September 7th, we had that regional manager from New York with us. And it was really a time of discovery, a discovery for us, things that we would have no way of knowing that he discovered. Issues around bus registrations, again, the letters, issues around the radios and the operation of the radios, numbering buses, the routes. I can go on and on. We had continuous meetings with these individuals and continuous assurances that everything was getting sorted out. Everything was working fine. Our buses were getting there on time. Everything was okay. On September 8th, that was the turning point. We had heard for too long that everything was all right and everything was getting fixed. And out of desperation, I went on the Durham website, and if you look on the Durham website, it's virtually impossible to figure out how to contact someone who's way high up, right? And I was able to find the CEO's name, not his email address, but his name. And I took a shot. I figured, well, okay, here's his name, and this is what the other email addresses end with. So I'm going to go ahead and send him an email. And I sent him a very desperate plea. And the subject line was, "Superintendent requests immediate assistance." And the email went on to explain everything we had gone through in depth. And within a half an hour, I had received a response from the CEO. And within about 40 minutes, I had received a phone call from the COO, and then I had received a phone call from the senior vice president or COO of operations, vice president, who's here with us tonight and has been here with us for 2 weeks. So that email kicked things into gear and got things moving. Moving forward on Sunday the 10th, once Mr. Kenna, who flew in here from New Jersey, the COO of operations, once he arrived on that Sunday, we had an emergency meeting where our central office staff, school committee members, the Durham team were at the table, and he immediately started to assess where we were, listen to what we had gone through. We've had the mayor's office involved, we've had the police department involved, and he's been here with us building a new team, a new Durham team here in North Providence, and he's been supporting us along the way as we make these changes. So we've met with the drivers, we've met with monitors, we continue to provide responses to the COO and CEO of the company. I know that means really very little if it isn't accompanied by the support, and we are getting the support from Mr. Kenna and his team. We have a new, obviously as of the first day of school, we had a new general manager, but we also have, thank you, we have a new region manager who's here with us tonight, thank you. And then we've had Mr. Kenna here with us. We have a safety supervisor who's here with us, and they would like a chance to certainly address you, answer any questions that you might have, and explain their role in what you have gone through. So I will wrap up at the end. I certainly have, I'm willing to answer any questions you might have of me and of the school department. But at this time, I'd like to turn this over to Bob Kenna and Steve Schmuck. Steve is our new region manager. Steve has, I believe, over 30 years of experience, 24 years of experience with running bus departments and whatnot. So they're going to go ahead and address you. And we also have Safety Bob with us today, right? We're happy to answer some questions afterwards. I'm not leaving, I promise. Yep, I'm coming right back up. Okay, go right ahead.
All right, good evening. As Superintendent Morrisseau stated, As Superintendent Morrisseau stated, I'm the Vice President of Operations for Durham School Services. As a leader and an executive for the company, what took place here is unacceptable, and we take it very serious. As a parent, I feel your pain, and I recognize your frustrations. Durham's failure to plan and execute in the summer resulted into a complete mess for a startup. I mean, there's no other way to really simply put that. You expected service and you expected state-of-the-art technology. What you got was the complete opposite. We didn't have buses, inexcusable. We had lack of communication. We had poor communication. We changed routes that everyone was accustomed to. Those same routes we didn't vet through the North Providence Police Department. We had a radio system that wasn't checked, which resulted in no communication. Sure thing. So we had a radio system that wasn't checked, which created even more chaos the first day of school. We had cameras that weren't installed. We didn't have any GPS. We pretty much took the disorganization of day one and we compiled it by just not being ready. In addition to that, over the first 10 days of school, we had 4 accidents. So on the 8th, I guess when it reached its pinnacle, Superintendent Morrisseau reached out to our CEO. That next morning, I had a brief conversation with the superintendent, and at that time is when I realized the gravity of the situation. I immediately made arrangements to come here to attend the meeting on Sunday, and at that time I realized it was well out of control and we failed the community. I got the full debrief. I think we got the accelerated version tonight, but it's a much more bleak picture of how we failed the multiple attempts that were brought from the school district to really steer us in this process, and it was a debacle, to steal your words. So after that meeting, Sunday night, I started reviewing everything, all the emails that Superintendent Morrisseau sent, and went through, and I really, I guess it smacked me right in the face, right? I immediately started assessing the situation. I started deploying extra resources, and I knew there's a couple real quick wins we can get in place. So with some of those extra resources, we obviously established some swift communication. You know, she and several members of the school district had my cell phone number. We talked regularly, right? You know, I was down there the first thing next Monday morning as well, and I felt some of the pain and I felt the pressure and all that. So some of the things that we did that we changed right away was we changed out the general manager, as was stated before. We also replaced the region manager, and we replaced the general manager and the region manager with basically 50 years of experience between Steve, the regional manager, and Fran Ademski, the general manager, also from Smithfield. We were able to get ahead of the bus situation. So we now currently have 26 buses in a fleet where we run 23 routes, and we have more coming. It's going to give us roughly a 5-bus surplus. We have all radios functional and working in every vehicle. We have cameras in every bus that are functional and working. In addition to that, I also knew there were some other issues. And I needed some extra impartial resident experts for safety. So I immediately got on the phone and brought Bob Kuchelik, which is our area safety director, and brought in some additional safety training supervisors. Another thing that I have to say is we not only have we failed the community, but we put our drivers and our monitors in a very, very poor situation because they are the face of us. They are the ones that have interacted with each of you, and it has not been pleasant. I get that. So I wanted to make sure we brought enough resources in to support them as well, get them the necessary training, and to try to combat the situation. So that's why we brought those individuals in. To follow up on the accidents, again, 4 accidents in 10 days. 1 is too many. Let's be perfectly clear. Safety is a paramount of what we do, and you deserve that. We removed 2 drivers because of those accidents. We've also had to remove a monitor due to actions as well. One of, I think, the key components that we bring as a company is the technology. And we absolutely 100% have our GPS, our cameras, radios in place and functional on all vehicles but one. So at this point, I'm going to turn this over to Steve Schmuck, which is our regional manager. He is going to touch on some of the route structure issues and fixes, the Zonar capabilities, and the operations in general. All right, Steve?
Thank you for being here, and I do welcome your feedback because that's how we're going to get better and heal from here. As you've heard, I do have experience in the school bus industry, and coming in and assessing the situation, it's bleak, and some of the descriptions that we've used, it's painful to see. I've been doing this for 24 years. I have worked in the Rhode Island market and worked in Smithfield and started that up several years ago, and worked in Burrillville and many other locations throughout the state for our organization, and done it very successfully. And coming in now, I was, as you've seen and heard, came in last Thursday to assess everything, as Bob said, and really start to digest things. And needs to say, I'm back in the state of Rhode Island. Look forward to working with all of you to improve everything, get back to the levels I expect and the levels you guys deserve. So immediately assessing the routing structures and getting into the operational stuff, that's really my specialties and what I enjoy doing, and looking at both old and new. So I didn't want to dismiss anything. I wanted to take and look at what were the benefits of what you had, being familiar with routes and stops, and for the children and for yourselves, and also the approval process that had been done prior on the with Sergeant Scaramuso and the approvals with the police department, and then looking at any efficiencies that were possibly salvageable within the new structure. And in doing this, I also uncovered that there had been modifications by the prior leadership with Durham, that they had made changes in some of the routing system settings, which increased bus stops. It increased more people eligible for buses. So we did identify some locations that really, I think, were better pickup points in some cases, but some that need to change because they're not good places, and we need to move them for efficiencies and for overall approval. As we look at those stops and the routes and get feedback and work with the district, and we've been partnering closely with everybody and having those huddle-up meetings since I've been here, since Thursday last week, and really looking to provide the best solution, a hybrid solution of both, to go forward and really resolve the problems for all of you as quickly as possible. When I look at the stops that were in existence, I would estimate there was probably around 250 in the mid-range, 250 last year, roughly, and we're probably sitting somewhere around 340 right now. Some of them are definitely a direct result of the McGuire and the Stephen Olney change. So prior, there was some eligibility in walkers and some students that didn't get buses. They they all get them now due to the change. So that naturally did cause some restructure, some pain points, and obviously increase bus stops. As we look at the process of modifying the routes, we need to obviously address their tiers, meaning when they go to the high school, the middle school, or an elementary, if they are, the timing it takes to get down there. Some of the paths that we maybe had routed might make sense on a map, but without local knowledge or influence, it can't be done. I've driven down Mineral Spring now several times, and when I think I can go a mile quickly, I can't. And so there are lessons learned there as far as not involving our experienced bus drivers that were in the community and asking some questions and having the dry runs professionally done and expected results and validated by GPS as we would require and will be done going forward. So we have to look at that, the tiering, the capacities. We know that there's some capacity concerns, and we're going to continue to look through those and provide the solutions for that. And ultimately, the overall timing and getting all the kids to school on time, ready to learn every day. Like I said, we've been partnering with the district. We're working with them timely on any route that we're going to suggest has a different stop that might have been might be different from, let's say, a prior stop from last year or route, and those are being approved as we speak. And then as those stops get vetted out and approved and come back to us, all that pairing will be done immediately, and dry runs with validation through GPS and local knowledge interface will be completed on any modification for a change. And then a communication plan set out so we can properly inform all of you, the schools, the principals, the school district, and have the right information, and then begin any changes that we can make. Once all those edits and dry runs are made and we get the final communications plan laid out, we look at really launching a lot of modifications throughout next week, and we believe that we can achieve all those changes throughout the course of next week pending approval processes. So we do want to follow the processes. We want to make sure the communication plans are in place and that everyone is well aware of what we're going to accomplish, and that there's not going to be a dropped ball, not on my watch. So let me, sorry. Thanks, Bob. One more. So I don't want to belabor what's on the screen here, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of the tools and the technology components and what we're working through, so you can kind of see some of that at a high level and as a sample, so that you can kind of understand. So what I've got up here is a screenshot showing a route set of, I think it's the Birchwood Middle School. And this is through our VersaTrans routing software. And good data in, good data out. If you use it and vet out through local knowledge and dry runs and follow the process, it can work extremely well to your advantage and provide a lot of efficiencies, resources, and reporting. And in many ways, obviously, that wasn't utilized. It wasn't set up properly, and we didn't get the best output through prior leadership. So that is all being corrected and changed as we speak. Let me just quickly change over here to the next screenshot. Again, I'm not spending too much time on a training session, but certainly I want you to understand that this is a single screenshot of just one route and how it goes through, let's say, a neighborhood, and it identifies the stops. You probably can't see it too well up there, but there's some blue marks up there identifying the stops. What's important, and the reason I'm showing you this, is that when we build this route and we take what you have for information or prior routes and look at the efficiencies, look at the opportunities, look at changes within the district and students, we then will take that information and vet it out, and should vet it out through our local team. And that includes drivers and monitors and dispatchers and leaders, myself, Lori, and Jim, and several people throughout the district, and what makes sense, what doesn't make sense. And then from there, the next screen brings you into one of our ground traffic control systems, which was not operational when we started school, and does cause a lot of operational concerns. And what this does is this is a lot of our interface with what our buses are doing. This can show you live time where every bus is, what it's doing, how fast it's traveling, if it's picking up a student, opening its door, if it's closing its door. It can show you just a massive amount of information, and it's all archived. It never goes away. So if someone says someone backed up, I can tell you if it backed up. If someone says it didn't stop, I can tell you if it stopped. I can tell you just about anything on any bus at any time, live. I have created an account for the school district, which they will have access within the next 24 to 48 business hours, and I'll provide personal training to the team there and whoever wants it, so that they can have some access as well to utilize some of this technology and benefits, and we'll show them how to make that happen. So we can take this information as an example of that route I showed you and actually validate the dry run as the driver performs it, and then we can also audit it as throughout the school year to see if things are changing, if there is better ways, if there is situations where we're deviating from the route. We can tell all that. And so this is quite the tool. This is one of the reasons I think the school committee and school district wanted some of this technology, and I certainly can attest to it. It's very effective, and I'm going to implement it and make it work to the benefit of all of you. So we will, as I said, this will be implemented as access to the district. The accounts already created. I just got to get them trained up in the system. I also want to go back and talk about the Versatrans routing software. I have been in communication with I think Ralph, the IT guy, and some others within the district. We're going to also put in read-only Versatrans access for the school district as well, so that our student database that we're going to pump the information in from Skyward, the school district student management software, so we can have more current information timely, so we can address new changes, address changes, stops, adds, deletes, and into our system. And by them having access, they'll have quick, accessible information. If someone calls up and wants to know about a stop change or special need request, IEP, anything, they'll have what we see and what we're dealing with. So it'll be a shared partnership with the software, and that we're working on, and will get implemented over the next couple of weeks. So I know there's been some promises made. I know you've heard from prior leadership. I'm standing here today to tell you that I'm not going to let that happen on my watch. And I know for all of you, as we've said, I'm glad you're here. I'm glad you're going to give us the feedback that we deserve, and I look forward to learning from what you have to say and taking it away and making it better. And I also want to say that one of the things that we offered and will implement, and I think will be better for everyone down the road very shortly, we have what's called a Durham Bus Tracker application. It is a web-based solution. It's a cell phone product. It's on the Apple Store, the Google Store, Google Play. It's there now. You can download it. It's free. You'll just need some codes and stuff when we go down the road to set it up to have access. That will go live in the very near future. As soon as we get it all cleaned up, as soon as we get everything efficient, and we have the accurate information, and we're all in alignment, and then we'll have another session. We'll all come in front of the committee. I will provide media materials, training, pamphlets, whatever we need to all the schools to support them, and then you'll have access to the information timely for the buses and the stops, and we'll cover that when it's time to down the road, but that is coming, and that's all I had. So I do want to apologize, and I want to turn it over to Safety Bob. So thank you guys.
Thanks, Steve. Yep. Thank you, Steve. I'm the area safety director, as Bob said. I'm covering the whole East Coast. I do have 40 years of transportation and safety experience. I just wanted to tell you a little bit about the training that we do with our drivers, so everyone knows that we do have professional drivers. And obviously anyone who gets a CDL is a professional driver. It's how they handle the vehicles and the equipment that's very important. But all Rhode Island drivers receive state mandatory training, and that's run through the Community College of Rhode Island, otherwise known as CCRI. For that certification, they get 4 days of state certification and a minimum of 10 hours behind the wheel training. As National Express and Durham, what we do is additional training, and it's our in-house training, which we call STAR training. The STAR training is the school bus driver training course material from the School Bus Safety Committee. So when we run new drivers through this program, it's a 5 days of classroom, school bus safety training, 30 hours minimum behind the wheel training on top of that. After they complete that and they've demonstrated that they can handle the vehicle in a safe manner and professional, they go and they're CDL tested by a certified Rhode Island authorized inspector. Before they take the bus and pick up students, they also get another final evaluation before they're driving the students. And then while they're doing that, they also receive a 30-day reevaluation and then at least an annual evaluation. So we're ensuring that the new drivers can handle the bus. And we did have a new driver start this week, and I had an opportunity to go with her. She did a very good job. So, you know, we do that to make sure we follow up with our drivers. We also have daily safety messages that we put out to the drivers, and then we also do a monthly safety meeting. And they had their first monthly safety meeting today. So today we addressed speeding as a company and what we do to reduce that. We talked about the equipment, just as the concerns you had, or drivers had concerns on how it worked. We had a company in there today putting all new antennas on the equipment so we would have even better reception. So we went through that. We talked to all the monitors and the aides and did some additional training with them on student management, good communications, professionalism, and how we talk to both parents and students on the bus. So we continue this training in a monthly format, ongoing all the time, especially when concerns arise, whether from drivers, parents, the school district. We always use that forum to get them additional training. For the monitors, they receive 4 days of training, 20 hours, more if needed. We go over things that include the student management, strategies for student management, special needs training, danger zones, loading, unloading, safe bus stops, and Rhode Island also requires some additional training, which is EpiPen, medical emergency, which is also done, retrained annually. The material we use is from the school bus company, which I showed you before on the previous slide, and we take safety very serious. You know, your children, the students, you know, are of the most important to us and their safety. So, you know, we understand that. And as a parent, I can tell you, 35 years ago, Mr. John picked up my children, my 3, every day and took them to school. And I never had to worry about my children getting to school and getting home. We want that confidence from you, from our drivers. And I went out with a couple drivers this week. We brought in 2 other safety professionals with the company who rode with drivers. I'm going to tell you what I saw, because we passed a lot of the other buses. Our drivers were going under the speed limit. They were safe. They were turning properly. And we have a good professional group of drivers here, and we need to continue to support them. So thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to Superintendent Morso.
Yeah, why don't you stay just in case there are certain questions that you can answer. Okay. So I know that it might not be a whole lot of consolation to you at this point to be hearing all of what you just heard, but for those of us who have gone from where we were to where we are now, we can absolutely emphatically tell you that we have made tremendous progress, and the level of confidence that I have in the bus company at this point in comparison to where we were, it's indescribable. So, you know, I would be remiss, and I know that this might sound a little odd because of the challenges that we've been facing, but I would be remiss if I didn't extend a huge thank you to the team that is now here supporting us here in North Providence, because we do have the best of the best here with us right now, and I can state that from experience, and then from also, I've worked for a long time with Fran. Where's Fran? I don't know where she is. So in Smithfield. So as I was throwing one of my many fits I've thrown over the past few weeks about busing, I was asked, well, would it help if we brought Fran from Smithfield? And I said, yes, that would be a good start. Let's get Fran here. And I think she came kicking and screaming, but she came. And she hasn't had a whole lot of rest, but she's been awesome to work with. And then certainly Steve Schmuck, who is also in Smithfield, Smithfield when I was there. So that is, I can just state again from experience that I do feel that we are in completely different hands at this point. We have a long way to go, and we recognize that you still have concerns, and I still have concerns. But I can tell you that we will continue to spend as many hours as we need to make sure that our children are safe. You know, I want to thank, I give the drivers and the monitors who are here tonight a whole lot of credit because, you know, they've had to endure my wrath at the bus yard, and they know what I'm talking about. I've kind of flown over to the bus yard on my broom a few times, and it hasn't been real pleasant. But they're here, and I know that they do care, and they are, you know, taking every step that they can and to ensure that they're meeting our expectations, and I appreciate that. Now, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you have. If you have outstanding questions, concerns, I'd ask that you please, you know, state them, and I'm going to repeat them into the microphone because this is televised. So if anybody has questions, if you'd prefer to speak to me privately afterwards, or any of us privately afterwards, you're more than welcome to do that as well. The last thing I would like to mention is that we have set up a separate email address where you can send any comments, concerns. That email will be checked throughout the day, several times a day. As of right now, there are many of us getting these emails, and so what we tend to do is forward them to each other, forward them to the bus company. Please address this with the parent. If we send our concerns to one email address, we'll be sure that we don't miss any of those concerns. So we'll go ahead. I thought, didn't we put it in here in the PowerPoint? Yeah, I thought we did. I think we put it in here, so I'll go back and look for it. But if you do, backward, there it is. I know it's kind of hard to see, but it's busing at npsd.k12.ri.us. We'll leave it up there on the screen. So Lori Falone, who's our transportation coordinator, Fran and I will, all three of us will get those emails. So we will make sure we're going to sort of do checks and balances with each other to make sure that the correct person is answering the email. So any questions? Sure. Thank you.
I know you've had your trials and tribulations with radon issues and all the busing issues. My question to you, is there a director of non-instructional services any longer that is autonomous to the school committee, where they have direct jurisdiction over authorizing that person what to do, when, how, where, and why?
Okay, so the question was, do we have a director of non-instructional, non-instructional services? And yes, we do. Non-instructional operations, right? And yes, we do. Jim Feroli, and he's been instrumental in all of this, working with Lori Falone. They share an office. Jim's been there on different, you know, runs. Jim's been at the meetings with us. Jim's working closely with Sergeant Scaramuzzo to go and certify those stops as safe stops. So he's had a large role in that. So I'm not sure about the second part of your question about.
It sounds like Durham gave you the same speech they gave tonight about everything that they were going to do and provide as technology upgrades to outwin a company that was here for over 15 years without any incident like this, which I do have to say is a disgrace.
Can I respond to that?
If that's what they gave you, why didn't the non-instructional director go out and make sure that everything they said they had for these upgrades.
So again, because this is televised, I'm going to sort of paraphrase what you had asked. The question was about Durham and the technology that's available that was presented at the time of the bids being selected, awarded. The question is, why is it that, you know, that technology wasn't being used, correct?
Why didn't the Director of Transportation or the non-instructional director go out and make sure that what they committed to in the bid spec was in the buses?
Right. So
That was the reason for the change.
okay, let me give you an example of, and I'm certainly not here to defend Durham, okay? I'm not here, I'm not here to defend Durham. I'm here to be transparent and tell you the truth about exactly what has transpired. I have my emails, so we would ask certain questions. The technology and all those tools that we were shown tonight and that we've been shown over the past few days, it was there. The problem is, quite honestly, I'm going to say it, the general manager we had wasn't using it, didn't have it set up properly. So we can ask the questions. The director of non-instructional operations can be present at every meeting, as was I. And we can say, okay, so we have our radios are set up. We have the Zonar set up. We have this set up. None of us would have any, we don't work for Durham. We would have no knowledge of how to ensure that, none of us would go drive to Durham and say, okay, you know, let's turn on Zonar. It just, that's not what our roles are. So we were lied to. We were lied to repeatedly. And
The transportation director has the knowledge to know what needs to be in effect.
and we were told repeatedly that it was in effect.
So you're telling me that the town transportation director
Mhm.
went into these buses,
What?
into a new company, that would be the first thing I'd do to make sure, to check before my students were on these buses.
So the town transportation director isn't the person to be turning on a Zonar. Do you want to answer that at all or not? Am I on the right track? Right.
That when you hire a new company,
Mm-hmm.
something wasn't broken and it was fixed. A bid went out with expectations and a new company was awarded the bid. I stand here tonight saying that you should put that out to bid again because they didn't perform the service that was expected in that bid from day one. And you even said in July and August, you had many, many concerns. But it didn't put up a red flag. It didn't make anyone go out and say, let's make sure the safety of our students and all the expectations are being met. We hear, I'm sorry, I'm sorry, I'm sorry. They've been in this position for 30 years as the directors. We get, I'm sorry, another black eye. And the real reason I'm here is because people started calling me. They couldn't get through to Durham. They couldn't get through to a Cologne, a secretary. They were leaving messages. Kids were coming home late. They had nowhere to turn. And I said, okay, well, let's see what's going on. And I really didn't even know that Marwell didn't have the contract anymore. So at that point, with all of these issues, you know what? What's to say that moving forward, they're still going to not perform the same way? You really need to consider breaking the contract. Hopefully, we have a performance bond to protect the town and put this whole thing out to bid again. And I'm sorry, you might be nice people, but you failed our community. We're not sitting here with parents because something didn't happen to their child and the safety of their child. It's just not right. So if something doesn't get fixed and you're saying you're fixing it, I think you had your shot. And I think you need to move on and put it out to bid again and have the opportunity of the other company to take 2 months to get their technology up and running. that would only be fair.
Thank you.
I'm all about being fair.
Thank you.
That's how I feel, and I guarantee you the people in the audience feel that if it wasn't broken, why did you try to change it? Because it's broken now.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
I thought there was a kid, my name's Wayne Cater, I come from the Maryville section, bus 12. Is it supposed to be okay for the bus to stop and pick up a child at their house instead of at a designated bus stop?
Well, I'm not sure what you're at. We do have some students who are picked up at their house and not a Okay.
Okay?
Yep.
The bus stops before the stop. I'm disabled, I have a hard time walking. Bus stop used to be at Finch and Dog. Bus stop got moved to Finch and Ward. It's maybe 200 yards more for me to go. But now it's not bad. And when the winter comes, I'm not going to be able to do this. Okay, I can get to Finch. It's not going to be easy for me to get to Ward. It ain't that far, you say, that you can't, but I have difficulty, very much difficulty walking.
Right.
The bus stops at this one is driveway at 2 Ward Avenue, halfway up the block. And I have to walk my granddaughter down there to pick up, to get her on the bus.
So I can tell you that when we receive specific requests and we take...
Normal student, she wouldn't even come out of the house.
So have you contacted me to ask if we can give a special circumstance request?
No.
I didn't...
It's not that, it's just that when my granddaughter, before, the bus parked at Finch, the woman wouldn't even come out of her house. The bus wouldn't even pick up the kid because the parent wouldn't come to the bus stop. But now the bus posts right in front of her door.
Oh,
Is that right?
do you know this answer? Okay.
Is that right?
I'm not sure,
And the
because
bus
I
goes
don't know
right
the
by my
circumstances.
house.
Are you asking for a special
No,
stop?
I want the route changed back to the way it was, because the bus can't even get through the side streets down there. I live in the middle of no man's land.
Okay.
Dorman and Oriole. I'll tell you, every day, that bus, twice a day, cannot make any corner around my house today. Imagine when the snow hits, they're coming the wrong way. They should be coming out of Gillen Platte, coming out of Francis, and down to Finch. It's the main road, the way they should go, because the roads are wide enough for them to get through.
Okay.
There's no way it should be the way. My daughter spent 2.5 hours on the bus. Now it's down to 1.5 hours. I have to take her, because I can't see her being on a bus.
I
And
agree.
that's not appropriate. You know, and I know you've changed everything, a lot of things have changed. The bus used to have to come out of Ritchie to get to Maryville in time, and never got there because they gotta go through a miserable mile. And everybody knows the miserable mile. And that's, I just can't understand why this lady can get the bus stop at her house. And I have to walk a lot farther when it used to be a block away. It's not.
So if I may, sir, I want to interject and provide somewhat of a response. And I appreciate the feedback, and our manager's taking notes as well. Certainly, we're going to partner with the special education director, with transportation director, with whatever information and requests. There are certain situations or IEPs that do exist that, you know, aren't privy and public information. So there are situations that will occur that seem unfair to others, and that is unfortunately an industry standard. But going back to, we are acknowledging that there are things that were done or routed that we feel may not have been in the best interest or correct or current. So we're taking that feedback, sir, and I appreciate that. And we will look to make solutions and changes and make it back to
The way you're running that bus now, you're wasting a lot of time.
understand.
Kids on the bus the way they have to run.
Well, but thank you for your feedback. We are taking away information, and we'll look to make changes. So thank you.
Can I say something? Because my child is on that route, I know that you probably need a specific bus stop route, but the way
No, I
that
don't need a specific bus stop, I don't care.
the bus route works the way it did before because it came through Gillen Platte, which Gillen is a safer street. Now I followed the bus a few weeks ago multiple times. It goes like this. It doesn't make any damn sense, which I know you say they're changing it.
Bus 12, correct?
that's not even safe, the way that they're putting the bus. So if they just, I'm not even sure why they changed the route, because regardless, I know that there's swing schools, but you're still picking up kids from the same area. So I don't understand why it couldn't just stay the way it was before. It worked for everybody. Everybody knew where it was at. It was a lot safer. It's not safe anymore.
And again, thank you for that. And I will assure you that, as I said in my part, we are looking at what there was and what we've done and making the best solution put forward, and changes will be made. So if it is going back to exactly what it was, that could be the answer. I can't promise that today, but I can tell you that it is being evaluated, promise you that.
Because the bus comes out Gillen Flat now.
Understand. Yep. No, and we appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
I know everybody knows who my father is and who was involved in this town for many years, and it has nothing to do with him. And it has everything to do with my child, who's a kindergartner in Stevenson. It's not even for so much the bus company, because I think that should have been handled before school even started. Anyway, but I want to know, I'm very confused as to who us parents go to. Is it Lori Cologne, the transportation coordinator, so-called say? Is it Jim Ferroli guy, who's the director of transportation? Is it our superintendent, who has done an amazing job for what she was handling? I mean, she shouldn't even be handed this when we have two people that are supposed to be competent with transportation, and our educational director here has to be flooded every single day with problems with non-educational issues. It shouldn't be happening. It never did. My oldest son is 19. He's been in the school for 16 years. Busing, this, that, not once did I ever have an issue with any of this, nor any parents that I know, and I know many in the school department. None had an issue. And if they did, they went right to one person, one place, one director, one secretary. Why do we do this? To save money? At the risk of our children? To not know where to go? To an email address? It just doesn't make me comfortable. I'm sure any parent in here comfortable with putting their child on the bus. There's so many people that are bringing their children to school and picking them up, having people go out of the way, which we know is an issue at Stephen Only with all these cars, because I mean, there's no parking as it is. Why is this happening? And this is all for the school department, not for you, because, I mean, why? I don't understand.
Would you like me to respond?
I don't know why there's not one person. Lori Cologne is supposed to be the secretary. The director of transportation, which you tell me is Jim Ferroli. Not once have I ever, in all these months, with all these parents' problems that I know of, has anyone been directed to him. They've been directed to Lori Cologne, which directs everybody that I know to Durham, and they can't get answers. It's a constant spin. We're being guinea pigs here. Our children are guinea pigs for this company that should already 30 years better that they've been in place.
Like in the summer.
We need to
Do you want to answer? They're asking about a dry run. So,
I can't speak to whether they're done or not.
do you want to answer about dry runs, and then I'll talk?
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak on the first behalf, but on the second about the route and the dry runs, I can't speak to whether they were done. And certainly the prior leadership that was here, whether they did or didn't do it right. So I can assure you that it's being done now, and the process that we expect are being followed. And when we do this and follow it, we don't have these issues. So, sorry.
Yep.
We went across Mineral Spring, down Smithfield Road, through Greystone neighborhood, down Waterman Ave to pick up a child at Greystone Villages, continued down Waterman, made a U-turn into a neighborhood, then came back up Waterman Ave to take a right into Senator, to make a left at the Honeydew to go all the way down Moscatelli. Yesterday's bus was 22 minutes late. The day before, the bus was about 20 minutes late. Today, they were 6 minutes late. My bus pickup time is 8:38. The bus got there at 8:47. So when I called the bus department yesterday, the secretary, whoever answered, and said to me, "Oh, a new person started school, so it was a new route, and the driver didn't know, so they passed the kid and had to turn around, and so it was a big story," which is fine. I know things happen, but she was on the bus for almost 35 minutes. I mean, me taking her to school, and I know that there's stops, but it just doesn't seem like those 3 stops should be on route with what, it goes by neighborhood, pretty much of what I've been told. And Greystone Villages is nowhere near Grove 11, so they're going a good 10 minutes out of the way, and all these kids are getting to school late every day. And all these parents, which friends of mine didn't even know their kids were 25 minutes late to school, they thought they were in school and they were on a bus. So and I'm not trying to complain, I know that they were trying TSL, but to be on a bus for 35 minutes, then in the afternoon, school buses come between 3:09 and 3:12. Our entire day doesn't end until 3:27. Kids are getting on the bus at 3:10. My daughter got off the bus today at 4:00. So she was on the bus for an hour. Getting out early before the school day's even over. So I'm not understanding how, and then obviously class is over at that point. So the kids that are getting picked up from the parents, they sit in class for 20 minutes because the bus is already late. So I'm not understanding how it's taking, even if one stop to get out, that's fine. But an hour on the bus, we don't live in Mount Vernon. I mean, I drive to the beach and back in an hour. So and I keep hearing the same things from parents over and over again, so I'm just not, those 3 last, and then we picked up a kid at the corner of Penobscot that directly gets picked up in front of Stephen Only's sister's school. Like, his bus stop is the driveway of the Stephen Only school that they're using, so I can't figure out, you're picking him up and taking him to McGuire, but he lives directly next door to the school that you could just go to. So there's more stuff. I don't know if it should be a different bus number or a different group or if another bus needs to get added. But all the kids on bus 23, every other bus is there before the bell rings. Bus 23 has not been there yet on time at all.
Okay.
My
So
daughter
thick.
was 23 as well, and she told me that, she said, "Mom, it's funny, we started today with the Pledge of Allegiance." She said, "You know what, at this school, Mom, we don't say the Pledge of Allegiance." And I said, "You don't?" And she said, "I don't think so." Well, by the time we get there, school's already started, but I don't think we say the Pledge of Allegiance.
And my child
That's pathetic.
is not one to, I mean, for her to walk into class 20 minutes late, she'd still be like, "Hi, what did you do last night?" And she would never, it would take her like a good 40 minutes to like, not having that time in the morning. So I mean, if the bus pickup time is supposed to be 8:38, getting picked up at 8:47, 11 minutes doesn't seem like a long time, but to go all the way almost to Smithfield and then back to Johnston, it is a long time. I mean,
The only
ultimately,
time my daughter was on time for school was when she missed the bus because the bus didn't stop at her stop and I had to drive her in. And that's since school started. That's one time she was on time for school. That's scary. I, as an educator, know that the beginning of the day might not be when we're learning and doing the farmers teaching, but it is the time where we're setting them up for success for the day. Like she said, settling in, getting ready to learn. That's vitally important. So that my daughter has, if we add up those 20 minutes every day, and some days spend a half an hour, we're talking hours, and we're not even through the first month. We're talking hours of school my child has missed and been robbed of. For what? Every day I'm like, should I just drive her? But she wants to take the bus. She should be able to take the bus.
my daughter's supposed to be home by 3:40.
So if I can, with bus 23, Certainly, as I've said, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but I have, and we have identified a lot of these situations and problems and have solutions and are working through solutions that will be implemented, as I said, next week. So there will be changes and modifications made to where that will not happen. Please.
I will tell you that McGuire should be our easiest school to handle with busing, quite honestly, okay? Because their school hours are the last. So they're the last run. So it certainly is news to me if kids are boarding the bus at 3:10. I did not see that, I will tell you. I've been at McGuire at the end of the day. I did not see students boarding at 3:10. I'm not saying you're not accurate. Yeah. So I will tell you one thing. Starting tomorrow morning, there will not be one child who boards the bus before 3:27. I can tell you that. I know we have to address the morning.
Not saying that I don't want it to happen, but if they get on the bus at 3:27, they're on the bus for an hour, they're not going to get home until 1 o'clock.
Well, 3:27 is when school ends and instructional time stops. So I don't want any child on the bus for an hour, absolutely not. And I don't expect that any child will be on the bus for an hour. But what I can guarantee you is that there will not be a child stepping on the bus until 3:27. Now, we still have a lot to fix, and we know that. And just as these gentlemen said, we have a lot to fix, but I agree with... I understand.
Okay, sir?
That's all of your jobs, right? To educate the children. I don't want to hear about the busing. You guys dropped the ball, as far as I'm concerned. But your job is to educate my child, and it's not happening. It's not happening. It's more than a day. My Lord, I mean, I would be, what hair I have left on a bus that long, and her child is missing that much school, I would be calling riot. Seriously, I would file a complaint. In all honesty, you're negligent. It's your duty to educate our children, and it's not happening. Unfortunately, it's the busing situation, and I'll be honest with you. My daughter, my youngest daughter, has an IEP at Greystone in the pre-K. 80 minutes the first day of school, 4 years old. The summer went great. Durham, this summer, perfect, great. Monitor, the bus, everything. First day of school kind of has been to school. We checked with the teacher. Everything's going good. Thank you. I appreciate it. I'll give accolades when it's listen. I appreciate it. But my daughter at Stephen Only is still late even today. Mrs. Napolitano, how much time we're paying an educator over $100,000 a year? She's a bus monitor outside. She's not doing education. You just got hired. Unfortunately, this is happening. I mean, and I appreciate you, and I know it's your job to do it. But our kids aren't getting educated. They're missing days of school already.
So, first of all, I'm going to push back a little bit about, just a little bit about your children not being educated. And I will tell you that I'm as angry as you are about these kids missing even a minute of school. I'm not talking about park testing. I'm not talking about park testing. What I will tell you is I am just as angry about this. I'm composing myself today, but I am just as angry about the bus situation and the situation that we've been put in here in this district. So I'm here to try to solve the problem so that we can ensure that we are providing a world-class education to both of your children and to all of your children. There's only so much I can fix with the buses right now on my own, which is why I'm working closely with them to come up with a solution. We are working diligently to come up with a solution. Unfortunately, we inherited an extremely broken system that is no fault of this district's. I'm sorry, it's not. It is no fault of this district's. So we have inherited a broken transportation system, which we are now fixing.
What do you mean broken? It worked. You had no problems up until today.
I'm just saying, but the responsibility falls on the school department and in your office to educate the children. I understand that we're having problems with busing. I want my daughter educated. That's what I want. That's what, you know what I mean? I pay, you just said, what, the third highest tax community in the state. In the state, third highest tax community. And we're not getting, we have the number 3 ranked school department. I mean, I'm not saying this paragraph about anybody, but my point is, I just want my daughter educated. She's supposed to be to school at 8:55. I want her there before 8:55, and at the end of the day, and I want her to do good. That's all I'm here for. You know, that's all I'm here for. I could have sent my daughter, and this is no reply, to Wheeler. I live right over here. My wife and I said, hey, we can, you know, I'm willing to spend $26,000 for kindergarten. Steve Cohen's a great school. We'll do it. And we've been there. We're very happy with the school. We really are, honestly. I'm not. The teachers have been great. But, I mean, with the busing, I just want my daughter to go to school, do what she's supposed to do. She gets good grades. She's happy. That's it. I just want her to be in school on time. That's all. That's it.
Why is this all falling on you?
You inherited it. It's not your fault. I'm not blaming you.
Transportation and the coordinator, not up here. Why is it all falling on you? This shouldn't be happening. We should be in our schools for educational reasons. Why is she, why? The next school committee answer this for me? Why? Why are they not up here? Somebody, you're our spokespeople.
Okay, I'll talk. I went to a meeting and you were there. What did I say? What did I say? Who did I say was responsible for this? What would I do?
You said you didn't want this to all fall on you.
No, I said I would fire the bus company.
Absolutely.
Didn't I say that?
Yes.
Okay.
So did the mayor.
Wait a minute. Okay, no. And everyone in that room, parents included, said, oh, we can't start from scratch, because if we start from scratch, it's really going to take too long. Because I had no problem with it.
We didn't say that.
That's what was said.
I brought that issue up first.
Okay.
Not being able to let this company go, or else we'd have to maybe cancel school on Thursday and Friday on the weekend. That's what we had mentioned.
But I want you to understand, I found out that the day you found out, and that's why I was at that meeting. I had no idea there were 1, 2, 3, 4 accidents. And I said, that's it. It's intolerable. I would never tolerate it. So I just want you to know, we're doing what we have to do. Now we have to fix it. The problem, forget the problem, what happened. We have to fix it now, because we have to go forward and we have to improve it. So we have a choice.
What I can tell you is we are reevaluating all systems to ensure
we have a
we
choice.
get the right people on the bus.
If we either have
No
to,
pun
we have to
intended.
fire this company and we have
Not
to
the
get
bus, Gina. I'm talking about in all areas. We are reevaluating the entire central office system to ensure that the right positions are in place. No.
There was never a problem. You're right. There was never a problem. Okay, I'm trying to give you an answer. You keep
When you had
badgering me.
Mr. McNamee, are you at the old bus company? To my understanding, Mr. McNamee, when you presented to us, was that they did not meet the bid specs. Is that what we were told? The prior bus company.
We decided.
We can get you a copy of the bid specs.
We as, Gina, as a,
Okay.
if I may, as a school committee, Gina, we decided at a meeting about a year and a half ago that we wanted to move our buses into the future. We wanted cameras on the buses, we wanted cameras outside the buses, we wanted some GPS. We wanted to make sure that the children's safety was at the highest level it could ever be at. And we asked the old bus company if they could accommodate us, and they couldn't. So we had no choice but to go out for bid.
Can I ask one question? This is Safety Bob. When you hire a bus driver, is Bob over there?
He just stepped out.
Okay, maybe
He'll be back, he will be back.
My whole question is, when they hire a bus monitor or a driver, and their job is to have the child's safety at their best priority, and everybody's sitting here saying safety is our number one concern. My daughter got dropped off on Charles Street when she lives on Food Hill. She was told with 7 other students, last stop, get off.
Intolerable, I agree with you. Run that by me again.
On the first day of school, Durham school bus number 13, they dropped kids off on Charles Street.
Well, I live on Charles Street, that's not near Fruit Hill.
Exactly. They told the bus driver and the monitor, we don't live over here, we live next to Richie. They were told, this is the last stop, you have to get off. So, Bob, the question to Bob is, when you first hire a bus driver, with all the technology, everybody's concerned with technology, I'm concerned with basic outlook for my daughter. As a parent to another parent, or that bus driver to another bus driver, for them to leave students out on a street and turn around and go to another school and not notify anybody of that, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, I agree with you.
So, Safety Bob's not back yet, and he will be, but let me speak to that if I can.
Also reached out to Durham. That individual, they are working with that individual. And I said, what does working with that individual mean? Oh, we've spoken to him. That's rule number one. If you don't leave a child unattended, you put him back on the bus and you bring him back to the school.
And we do that daily. And so let me speak to the hiring process. When we go through the screening, obviously, we meet every state expectation, and then we exceed it significantly. In an already difficult market to hire professionals, we've got... let me, if I can, please. And I'm going to go back and obviously look at what happened with that situation. I know Fran's writing that down, and I'll look into it. I was not aware, again, I was in here last Thursday, and when we hire and screen...
We did a 3-way conference call with...
Yes. Lori?
Yeah. Oh, I apologize, it won't happen again. You left 7 students out on Charles Street when they live on the other side of town. The radios didn't work in the buses. They don't have a cell phone they could pull out and call the supervisor and say, hey, listen, we got 7 students that say they live on the other side of town. What would you like me to do? You don't leave them there. You put them back on the bus and bring them to a middle school if they have to, and make arrangements somewhere.
You know, I just have to say one thing. I found this out the Monday when we were sitting there. Now, I know if anybody called me and told me that their child was sitting on Charles Street, I don't know if this town would still be here. So all I know is I don't know anybody did anybody get a call from a parent? All you're doing is you're calling all different people. You can call me. I think everyone knows my number. Call me, and they would get solved. You call Mr. Marciano, call Mr. Andriozzi. If you can't get an answer, I think we've known for 10 years I've been here, if you can't get an answer, call us. But we're getting blamed for it. I don't mind, I'll take the heat or whatever I have to take for. But if I knew this company was doing this, it would have been gone.
So
It's simple.
Wait, let's let the
I don't know what to say. We're trying to fix it now.
You all set?
I agree with you. Listen, basic one-on-one, agree 100%. I have no idea how you could leave a kid on the street 7 miles from home. Unfathomable. I can't believe it.
That's unacceptable.
But I don't know what to do at this point. Now we have to go forward.
Let me just...
But
But it would never happen if we knew this. If this school committee knew this, it would never be tolerated.
Yeah, that's true. Let me interject something here. This is totally unacceptable with the bus company, and I've had some discussions with some of these fellas, and they know that. Obviously, I didn't know you until I met you last week. I've been in many meetings. I didn't make the last meeting because I couldn't make it. 1 second. And we're going to let it, everyone wants to say something, but let me just say that the children are getting a good education. They really are. I mean, and this superintendent is committed to making sure we have a great education. 1 second. Okay, we understand the buses have been late. I know better than anybody because I'm told, I'm in constant contact with them. When they tell me a bus gets in an accident, I'm ready to have a coronary because, oh my God, I hope no kid gets hurt. I do think, and they know that, Durham was not totally prepared properly to do North Providence, I guess. Is that it, basically? Like, when bus drivers and people in town got a hold of me and said, bus drivers were saying to the kids, where's Birchwood School? Where's Stephen Only School? Where's this school? I mean, gee, if you're driving that bus and you don't know where the school is, and you're asking the kids where it is, that's not good. That's terrible. So I think we're all committed to do a much better job. And the superintendent has put a lot of time into it. I've been here at meetings on Sundays and after school and whatever to try and resolve some of these issues. And I don't blame you for being upset. I mean, everybody on this committee should be upset because it's terrible.
The one person who shouldn't be blamed is the superintendent. It's unbelievable, and I'm going to tell you, she's trying so hard to fix this that at some point, you're right. Okay, let me ask you a question. At the meeting, when she said, I'll get on the bus myself, what did I say to her? No, you're not. You're not getting on the bus to be a monitor. You're going to do your job. She's trying so hard that she's falling over her feet right now, and I feel bad for her. You're 100%. Nobody's disagreeing with you. I don't have that patience.
Sitting on the floor on a bus when there was 60 students, I think, and 70-something seats, and my son, my 5-year-old, and 4 other students were sitting on the floor for 4 days. I finally got up and I called the school department, and I talked to your secretary, and she immediately got on top of it. You immediately called me. We immediately had a meeting that next day, and everybody ended up there, the mayor, the police chief, the 2 school committee members. I mean, there were...
And that's what we found out. Seriously, we were getting updates.
Right? And they said, we're going to handle this. We're going to get on top of it. Yesterday, today, we still have major issues, major red flags, safety issues, and it's like they're just making excuses. And she's just answering, like, questions that she shouldn't even have to be right now. It's not her decision. You know, I mean, she needs to do her job.
100% agree. Are we agreeing with you? We're not disagreeing, and we're working towards that.
Yeah, then you can't reason with her.
Well, I'm just trying to make her understand that we're doing, you know, we got knowledge of this when you did. So we're going to make the final decision. Okay, so if we decide to let this bus company go, what's the answer? You people going to go without a bus for 3 or 4 weeks? At this point, we're trying to fix this. Forget who the transportation director is. Okay, we're not going to go attacking somebody that...
Yes, sir.
That's not what we're here for. We're here to fix it.
There's a guy in the back that wants to say something.
We give you answers.
Come on.
Never be tolerated. You're 100% right.
I would never put my child...
Exactly. What did I say? You're right. I said it, not the school department. I said it under the conditions that were going on, and I would not have the company. Period. That's my opinion. So,
okay, sir, come on.
First of all, I want to commend the superintendent. I think she's doing a very Second of all, during this big process, and I need a I try not to be blindsided by a bidder who comes in with a lot of bells and whistles, a lot of new technology, but don't have the boots on the ground or the knowledge of the terrain. Ms. Catanzaro mentioned the fire bus company. I'm a little bit biased on this, I'll admit it. She said 15 years instead of 40 years. My wife drove them buses. My daughters drove them buses. The owners and their kids have ridden in buses. Then our grandchildren ride the buses. The main ingredient when the school committee went over these bids and everything else that was seriously overlooked, not the price, the personal stake in it. These people are North Providence based, they're North Providence residents, they care about North Providence, and they know the parents. And you got blindsided by a company who came in blind and had no idea or education on who they were actually serving. You should reconsider. My suggestion to the school committee would be this: impose a 30-day probationary period in all fairness to this bus company. And if they don't show results, they should be fired.
That's exactly what I said at the meeting.
I was also at that meeting, and I said the same thing, and Bob can attest to it, and Gina can attest to what I said to them.
That was a week ago, so if there's still problems, we have to find out about it. We have to know about it. Okay, so if they're improving, that's not good enough. It has to be fixed, or you have to just move on. So I'm 100%, that's where I stand. That's my vote.
Presently, right now, Gina, your go-to people are us right now, because now it comes down to, if they're not doing their job, we have to rectify it. It's above the transportation director, it's above everyone else.
Sent out to parents saying that if you have any issues with the busing, please call your school committee members. Their numbers are on the website.
Do you want that? Or, yeah, we can do
Absolutely.
that, but we also-
Call me anytime.
I'm pretty easy to find.
So so in order for us to keep track of the data and the complaints and the concerns and address them, having those go to a central location like the busing email address where we have written evidence of situations. So there are 3 people who are on that email who get it. I get it, Lori Falone gets it, and Fran, our general manager, gets. So we can then make sure all 3 people will see the email and the right person can address it. I will be happy to. So I would be happy to share it as a read-only, but I can't have 10, 15 people responding to an email. It needs to be a coordinated effort. I can't have, there's no way I can then oversee it. So going back to, I want to explain a couple things too, and I hope I can do a good job explaining this. We sent out so much inaccurate information to parents that was provided to us by Durham. Incorrect bus routes, incorrect times, incorrect stops. We had one version posted on a school website and another version was sent to me to post on the district website, and it took hours to compare the two to see, you know what, these aren't right. Now I have to, we spent hours emailing principals, doing this cross-reference. I have it with me. Telling the principals, pull that off your site right now. This is the most recent one. Then to find out that the one that was sent to me that I'm telling principals is the most recent is incorrect. Okay, so this is the chasing of our tail that we've done. So what I said to the gentleman here, who are working and have certain routes done, keep in mind we have some people who were very pleased with the old stops, old routes, right? Then we have the new routes, new stops that were given to us by Durham. And we have 2 options, right? And then we said, well, do we have a third option where it's almost a hybrid, where we know that some of the old routes have been approved by Sergeant Scaramuzzo, so those are good, but we also have stops that are now needed based upon where students have moved into, based on all kinds of factors. Now, can we create a hybrid, right? So that, we did an overlay, basically, of old and new. They have some of those done. They presented them to us today, which, if I hadn't lived it for the past several weeks, I wouldn't believe it myself, okay? But it is complex. They're ready to push it out, and I said, absolutely not. Until we are 100% sure, I will not send parents one more thing that is incorrect about busing. I refuse. So there are eyes on this. We have Sergeant Scaramuzzo going around with the Director of Facilities to every single one of those stops to confirm that they're approved and safe for our students. I'm not sending out one more thing to parents that is not 100% correct. I refuse. And again, that was what when I say inherited, we can only go by what's sent to us by the bus company and then push that out to parents. And to send out anything else that is not like ironclad, I won't do it. So we could flip the switch probably tomorrow. No, I'm not doing that. So we will communicate. I wanted to wait until after this. We will communicate with parents that it's forthcoming. So the reason I'm explaining this to you is because we say, well, a week ago we met with them, and we've met literally every single day, several times a day with them. We are working on it, and they could flip the switch, and it would, okay, here you go, we solved the problem. But until we are sure that it's solved and it's right, I'm not doing it. So that's why you see a delay there.
Performance bond, so if you decide to break this contract, that we're not on the hook for paying any of the difference for another busing company. Yes, they do have a bond, and then they don't.
But I believe the requirement was for a performance bond.
Last Thursday? Yeah. I'm not giving any date. I'm just saying, we have to have a time frame. There is absolutely no doubt. It's got to be quick. I mean, you can't keep doing this. But I want you to understand, the school committee, in our minds, we're getting these beautiful buses, we're getting these new upgrades. To us, we were doing a benefit to the children. Obviously, it didn't turn out that way, but that was our logic when we did this. So we're not up here trying to say, hey, we want your kids to come home 2 hours late. That's what we're here for. And sometimes we take offense to that. I have gotten that one phone call about busing, nothing. That's intolerable. With all this mess going on, you don't call a school committee person?
Call for tomatoes.
I mean, come on. I bet you know. I mean, you should know your father was here.
I should trust my school department.
Okay, so...
They don't answer. You call the school department, they don't answer, they don't get back to you. How many people...
Okay, let me ask you a question. Have you called anybody up here?
Yes.
Who?
I called your number.
You called me?
Yeah.
You called me?
I called your number and got nothing back.
You left a message?
Yes.
I don't think you called me. You didn't call me. I'm at the bakery every day. You know where to find me. I've never not returned a phone call to anybody.
Just not that. People are not helping us. You took something that wasn't broken and got rid of it. They weren't broke. How many, let me ask you one thing.
I'm down.
How much problem did they have before you got rid of them? How many years did they go without any incidents?
I have no problem with them. We're just trying to improve, that's all.
Technology
And
isn't everything.
I agree with you. I'm not a technology person. Don't go to me.
5 square miles. There should be no reason a child can't go from point A to point B and get the kids home on time. I can't see it.
They have to be on the bus. It's not right. Whoa.
Polite lady's got.
Kept the drivers.
Sir, what are we looking at, sir? What are we looking at for a time frame where you think things will be?
So as I was stating that I'm communicating as far as the changes that we're going to make. So as I've stated, once we have the approvals in place,
Ms. Morriso met with them today and discussed the timeline. They're just telling you, Ms. Morriso met with them today.
What's going to happen when it starts snowing? You're not going to get anything done either.
No, it's going to end up like the 6 children that got killed in Chattanooga right before the school committee approved you.
that's not fair.
5 months before. Yes, it is true. Everybody can Google it.
I didn't say that was not true. I said that's not fair. That's
Right before the school committee. So who did their research on this company?
We could not, I mean, you know, Kristen, I know you know the rules. If a spec does not meet the bid requirement, we can't accept it. I don't understand what the confusion is.
Don't you want to know the safety of your children?
I'm not going to answer the question.
Like this gentleman said, he checked. Not just the pretty...
When I asked Mr. McNamee, you would not allow him to speak because you kept interrupting. Mr. McNamee, can you please explain to the people in the town that were not here what you explained to us when the bids came in?
Basically, we followed the state procurement regulations for the bid process. So the bid was advertised. There was bid specifications, which probably had to be 35, 40 pages. These are kind of standard within the industry. And we requested all the bidders to bid specifically under a format that we were requiring as a result of the bid specifications. And we expected that every one of the bidders would comply with those requirements. We actually went out, we advertised it, we had, I believe, 5 bus companies that responded and 4 that had supplied bids for the contract. The references were checked on Durham. We did talk with Smithfield. We did talk with Cumberland. We did speak with, I believe, Situate, because the prior superintendent had done the background work on the references, and the references came in extremely well for Durham. One of the issues we had is that we were relocating 2 schools. And by relocating those schools, we needed to have busing, routing software that was in place so that we could then take almost another 300 to 400 students and bus those to other schools. So having that technology was certainly important. Having the cameras on the buses was important because of many of the incidents that happened on the buses. There was no record of those incidents. So I think everything we did, clearly, we were doing for the benefit of the district and the kids. I certainly can't defend what's happened here. It certainly was not what we expected when we put the bid out. We also put the bid out, and we awarded that bid sometime, I think, in probably was early December, because we wanted to give the bus company enough time to go out and buy the buses, to get to know the routes, to hire bus drivers. In fact, Melinda and I had gone, prior superintendent went to a meeting that Durham had with the bus drivers at a place in Smithfield, and there was a great showing of the bus drivers. They were going to be offering a lot of benefits to the bus drivers in terms of 401k, and I think it looked like it was going along very well at that point in time. Well, I mean, this was all with the benefit of having the kids in mind in terms of the overall busing, you know. But so No, I understand. No, I understand. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead. All right, ma'am.
My question is, what is the role of the bus monitor? We don't know, we actually missed the bus that day, and I feel the village was, it's great that.
I think you gotta explain the role first.
But I would say, focused on my question is, what is the protocol because I actually don't feel comfortable that the bus monitor is
We gotta answer that.
Oh, yeah. Bus driver doesn't get off the bus when the kids get on. So.
What bus is that?
17.
Thank you.
Sure, I can talk about that. I don't know about that particular incident, and when something like that does happen, if it is reported, we will follow up right away for safety reasons, obviously, but the monitors are trained that they do a three-point check. They get off the bus. If they're picking up, they work in coordination with the driver to make sure it's safe and clear for the students if they're crossing the street to come across, to wait for the driver to give, that signal from... Well, but I'm just explaining the process too, sure. Right. But for the elementary, they have to, we do get off the bus, we do make sure it's all clear, we do a three-point check behind the bus, under the bus, before we get on the bus, and, that is for the elementary.
Birchwood is middle school. Right, so it's a different set of state law.
Yeah.
So now that he's, 11, the monitor no longer needs to
Yes.
be on the bus.
So let me clarify that, because I'm obviously very familiar with the Rhode Island laws and expectations. Rhode Island requires the monitors at the elementary level, and then not at the middle school. There will be routes, and there are routes, where there'll be a monitor that may be riding and have boarded the bus and entered it prior to that elementary tier starting, just from a logistic standpoint of where we're getting them and where they're riding at. So they may be riding there. They'll obviously help a coach or whatever with the driver, but they're not getting off the bus. They're not doing the three-point inspections. That's not their position at any other tier other than elementary level. And in some cases, we work with the school district if there's behavioral situations where we may say, let's put a monitor on at another tier to help on the bus internally with behavioral situations, but they're not required to get off at a middle school level.
So the monitor of bus 17 is riding with them, waiting
To begin the tier that's after that, and I forgot which one 17 does third, but Maryville, Wayland, or something, yeah. But certainly, I would encourage if something like that does happen, please call, report that. I would love to have conversations and understand, If you have a question or a concern like that, this is the perfect example of reporting it, getting it written in document in place so we can respond. And that way we can either call you back, email you back, whatever the response is, and make sure that you're comfortable with what's happening. So please, it's a great question. I don't think a lot of people do know that, and I think that's perfect. So thank you so much for asking that. Sure.
Going forward, we want to be positive. You're going to keep this contract and going on. Do you think it would probably be a good idea to maybe get that app out so it would be a little more transparent? And my wife won't be standing at a bus stop for 45 minutes waiting for my daughter to get off the bus. I know you don't want to roll it out, but it would be, at least if the parents knew that, hey, listen, the bus is going to be 10 minutes late. You know what I mean? Because we go by the letter. Be there 5 minutes before the stop.
Yep.
So my wife has to bring the 4-year-old, and she only has to half day of school, so she walks all the way down. And and they're down there like 45 minutes at the Bank of America. Where over there. I mean, and she has to
Yeah. We actually do want to roll the app out, and we actually had dialogues in our meetings today, and what we talked about, which is really important, is that once all the changes have been made and approved, and systems are updated, and we run, a week through the changes and allowing those Versatrans edits to speak with our GPS system, then immediately we'll begin our communication launch of the app. So it's... Actually, you might have had a microphone, because that's what I suggested, that at least by November 1st, I would like to have it implemented, and the application, not changes. The bus tracker app. Yes. And if I can do it sooner than that, I will, but I want to do it the right way. I don't want to overcommit and underdeliver. That's not my style. I want to do what I say I'm going to do. I am here to make a change, make difference, and deliver on what I've done throughout this state and the whole Northeast, and I'm going to do that. So I understand you've had broken promises. We've apologized for that. I've been with Durham School Services for 24 years. I've been in North Providence since Thursday. And everything that this school committee asked for in the specs is functioning.
So we've had a lot of questions about the timeline. And what we discussed today is that, going back to the changes in the routes and the overlay that I described to you, and the fact that we have 3 of the schools that look good right now that are going to Sergeant Scaramuzzo for final approval, safety. If we look at getting all of those approved, I said, okay, so let's say best case scenario, we get all of those stops approved tomorrow, then what? Well then, we still have to do dry runs because there have been changes, and we would be negligent if we didn't do those dry runs and make sure that we understand how long each of those runs will take, so that we're more realistic than what happened last time. So then they have to go out and do all of the dry runs, the safety runs, make sure that those streets aren't too narrow, all the things that really should have been done when we started asking in June, period. They should have been, and they weren't. But it doesn't mean now we can fast forward it and get it. We don't want to make a mistake. When I say we, there have been enough mistakes. So I do trust, you're putting me a little bit on the spot here, because I haven't had the greatest experiences. However, I will say that there has not been, since I started working with this team here, we have a whole new team, there has not been one promise that they have broken, okay?
There was. My child, and I know, as I told you this happened 3 days ago, I can't remember, 2 days ago, was the bus driver was driving down myself. I've been following the bus home with my child in the car that came up. I want to know that he's okay to get on the bus. They stopped on the main road, Smithfield Road. Let elementary children out the door. Not once did the monitor get off. They crossed the street. 3 parents seen all this happen. I know that they called, I don't know, they've spoken to people. You told me this, what you're saying? That they crossed Smithfield's after the monitor, yeah. Remember that? I know I texted you with quite a few things.
What route? What number was that?
After our meeting.
What number was that, please?
That was 24.
Thank you.
I did follow her today. She did get off. The monitor did get off today. So that's a plus. But this is just so risky. There's been a different monitor on that bus every day. The bus driver, sir, I'm forgetting.
Bob.
Okay, Safety Bob.
Safety Bob.
I saw that you were on our bus.
Yes.
Okay, the other day.
Observing.
I observed you asking the bus driver about her credentials for them.
Mm-hmm.
But the next day, she wasn't driving the bus. So again,
Correct.
another bus driver.
And that's something we did because we wanted her to be able to get off, answer any questions that parents might have, talk to parents, as the monitor besides doing the monitor job, which is the most important, because parents had issues. So we had another driver drive that bus, and she was there to get off, work as a monitor, and also an opportunity that if there were any questions.
I think the superintendent, if I'm correct, I texted her at that moment, she was with one of you gentlemen, and you had told her, it had nothing to do with that driver was learning the route in case she pulled out. It was just a different answer.
Right,
I got
yes.
one from the superintendent,
Mhm.
I got one from the bus driver, because I asked her separately from the new driver, I asked him the same question,
Right.
3 different answers. What's going on? What's the answer?
Well, every time you talk to someone, especially drivers and monitors, they're going to give you different answers from what we tell you.
Why she wasn't driving that bus that day, a different reason why he was driving, and a different reason what you gave the superintendent.
Yeah, so, in every answer and response, it was about learning. It was about learning. It was about the driver learning her children, acting as a monitor, was a sub-driver also learning the route, and that's what we responded. Yeah, that's what we responded as, and that's been consistent, and that's what we were doing. And that, those two type of situations will happen. We make those decisions to learn and train.
Does she ride the same bus, and it's a different stop with you and her dad?
She gets off on my bus stop once a week.
So it's the same bus, different stops depending?
No, 2 different buses.
Oh, I just, okay, that's what I wanted to know, thank you.
Had given us the okay as long as we had given that help.
And so she's getting on the wrong bus on those different days, that's, yeah,
Especially when people are okaying these.
right, okay, okay.
Kayla, today, I happen to be there again.
Yes, before you've been there.
But I happen to be there this afternoon as well. And the bus was actually stopped in the middle of Chandler, in the middle of the road, with its lights on, as our neighbor entered the bus with her cell phone, and they made a call. Yeah, they made a call.
And I was concerned as to what was going on, because I didn't see you there, and I was wondering what was going on. And I asked after, and it was, the answer I received was that you weren't at the bus, but you weren't at the stop, but it was okay for her to take your child. Sure, so the issue today was she was actually on the wrong bus, and thankfully our neighbor was there to accept her. Sure.
That's good, we have to fix that at the school end. So I would love to talk to you either right after the meeting or tomorrow. Yes, or tomorrow morning, but it is a school, it sounds like it's a school, and we can definitely deal with that right away tomorrow. So I would ask, there's a monitor on the bus, correct? Yes, and they have
Okay.
So,
As a mother, I'm just infuriated because my daughter knows, and that's what I told the bus mother, and she may take part of this. And I want to know if she is part of that, I want to know, because she will be also disciplined at home, because that's, there's a proper way to act in school and on a bus, and at home as well. So, with that, the app that you gentlemen are telling us about, and the part of having the camera, are we, as parents, allowed to watch that? I'm just asking, because no, I understand that, but.
no, because you would have access to other people's children. We have to be very careful with privacy.
But what I will tell you is that, as I mentioned earlier, I've met with the drivers and the monitors, and I made it very clear about our expectations for student behavior and the fact that we will not tolerate, not only will we not tolerate our children being treated well by drivers and monitors, but we won't tolerate poor behavior, what you're describing to us, if there is in fact bullying going on. And I've made it very clear to the drivers and the monitors that if they're having an issue, that they need to communicate with administrators, they can communicate with me about it, and we will not tolerate it. So that was made very clear at my meeting with them.
Can I interject something? So now, with, I forget your first name again. Yes, Bob as well. No, you're Steve. Steve, I should remember that. Steve, a little earlier you said that the cameras were up and running and working. Now, if there was a way where yourself, the superintendent, whoever has access, to look at this to see what in fact is going on in the bus so that we can alert Kayla as to what's going on, so that we can show that the technology is working.
Absolutely. So if we get an inquiry on a specific bus and a specific incident, we can absolutely pull that tape. We cannot give it to the parents, but we can certainly give it to any school official.
Okay, so I'm asking you to pull the tape for what day, Kayla?
It's happened a few times, and that's why today's kind of like.
You have a range? A range?
We've only been in school for the
So last few days?
Like the last
What bus number?
I mean, I'm sorry, number 11.
Principal will have the video tomorrow.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it. You want to know if your daughter's instigating or if someone's instigating her? I know that. I know the type of person you are. I understand. She'll get to the bottom of it for you. You're welcome.
I'd like to thank the members of the Durham staff for coming here tonight. Obviously, there were some big problems, and hopefully everything will be resolved in a reasonable time. It sounds like they're heading in the right direction. Nobody's happy with what happened. And, but we hope things get a lot better. I understand they are getting better. This is what I'm told. No further business.
What is the 100% performing debt? Who's in charge? Give a date.
We're not going to have a date for you tonight, Kristen. We will get back to you. Motion to adjourn?
Motion.
There'll be a date.
We'll get
Okay, we do need a date. We need a date, so
Can we have a conversation, please?
we will have a date by tomorrow, okay?
Motion to adjourn is in order. Motion by Mr. Picard, seconded by Mr. Angiosi. All those in favor? Have it so voted.
He's not intimidating, I agree with him.
That's all right. How are you?
Good. I just have an issue with bus 22. I think it's